Hello, my name is Jim Carrabba. I'm an agricultural safety specialist, and we're going to be talking about power takeoff safety today. So the power takeoff shaft is a rotating drive shaft that brings power from the tractor's engine back to an implement that you're using, like a manure spreader or a mower or a bale or something like that. And there's been a lot of unfortunate entanglements with power takeoff shafts because they're rotating drive shafts and they move with a lot of speed and a lot of force. So this is our PTO simulator here, and we use this just to demonstrate the effectiveness of PTO shielding. So right now, this yellow plastic part here, this is the PTO shield or guard, and what this does is it protects me from contacting the power shaft and getting wrapped on that power shaft when it's running. So when this is working properly, the power shaft inside of the shield will be spinning, and this one represents a 540 RPM shaft, which means it spins 540 revolutions per minute, which is about 7 times a second when it's at full operating speed. So if that was on an actual machine and I bumped up against it, the shield should stop, but the shaft inside is still running and I don't get wrapped up on the shaft itself. Because people have had their whole bodies wrapped around those power shafts or have had limbs torn off too. So with this simulator, I'm just going to demonstrate how you test the PTO shield to make sure that it's working properly. So if this was hooked up to a tractor and an implement, when everything is shut off, the tractor shut off and the PTO shut off, before I use the machine and it's connected to the implement and the tractor, I'm going to test the shield just to make sure that it spins freely of the shaft. So it should not be frozen or stuck to the shaft, because then it could essentially be like a bare shaft. All the new shields are made of plastic now because they found that to be a little more durable. They used to be made out of metal, and the metal shields would freeze or rust to the shafts, and then essentially it had like a bare shaft. But there's still a lot of old equipment out there with the metal shields, but most of them now are all made with plastic. So when I test this when it's off, I'm going to spin it to make sure that it spins freely of the shaft. You'll notice this one has a chain on it. So the chain is on there to hold the shield in one place when this is running. So I can tell right away if the shield is working or not. Then I'm going to try to pull the shield back from the universal joint. So there's bearings underneath the shield on the shaft, on the U-joint, that the shield rides on. So I want to make sure those are in place and they're working. So I can't pull the shield back on this end. But when I go down to this end, you can see that the bearing is broken. And I was able to pull that shield back and expose the universal joint. And you can see a big, long bolt here. So farmers sometimes are notorious for like cobbing things up, maybe use an extra long bolt or set screw or a cotter pin or something like that. And what do you think would be dangerous about that? You know, that could be a protrusion that could catch clothes very easily. So you want to make sure that you don't have extra long bolts or set screws, things like that. And also the bearing would have to be repaired so that I can't pull that back from the universal joint. So in this demonstration, I'm going to use a drill to spin my PTO shaft just to simulate how that would be on a tractor. So I'm going to attach my drill there. So you can see how fast that spins, and that's roughly equivalent to a 540 shaft. I'll spin it again. And you could see that the chain was holding that so that it didn't spin. Now I'm going to take this rag, I'm going to pretend this is my shirt. So I'm just going to pretend I was working near this PTO shaft and my shirt contacted that exposed universal joint. So now I'm going to spin this again. We'll see if it wraps up. And you can see how quickly that wrapped that shirt on there, on that shaft. So if that was my shirt and I got too close to that, it's going to wrap my whole body around that shaft. And that would be a devastating incident, which would probably result in not a good outcome. But with PTO shielding, you want to make sure that the guards and shields are always in place. If there's any broken pieces, like any broken bearings or broken shields, you should repair those promptly. And always stay away from these things when they're running. So if I'm going to go back and service the implement, I want to shut off the PTO, shut off the tractor's engine, and then wait for everything to stop moving, and maybe even put the key in my pocket so nobody starts that up when I'm back working on the implement. And there tends to be a number of PTO entanglements that happen on stationary pieces of equipment too. So things like grain augers, generators, post hole diggers, things like that. So when those machines are running, they're staying in one place to operate, to do their job. So make sure that you stay away from those and always be thinking about how close you are to that shaft when it's running. So always keep your distance from that. Shut everything off when you're going to go back and work on it. And also, you should have tight-fitting clothes on, so nothing loose or dangly. If you have long hair, that should be tucked up under a hat. Remove name tags. Remove watches, rings, jewelry, anything that could get caught on the rotating implement.